Welcome to the Building with Metal podcast, presented by McElroy Metal. Whether you're a contractor, architect, designer, or building owner, we're here to help you build better with metal roofing and siding products.
Hello, I'm your host, Kathy Miller, and on today's episode of Building with Metal, we're exploring how metal construction has evolved over the past few decades. What was once associated primarily with agricultural buildings or simple industrial structures has grown into a solution widely used across commercial, institutional, educational, and even architectural projects. To help us explore these trends, I'm thrilled today to be joined by Jeff Henry, the Executive Director of the Metal Construction Association. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you, Kathy. A pleasure to be here. Always happy to talk about metal.
Absolutely. You're in the right role then, if that's the case, right?
I love it. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So in case some of our guests aren't familiar with you, Jeff, can you start us off by giving us a little bit of your background professionally, and then also, fill us in a little bit on the MCA, what the mission and goals of the organization are, and then your role there.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'll start with myself, Jeff Henry, as you indicated. I serve as Executive Director of the Metal Construction Association. My background, I've been with MCA since 2012, working in different capacities within the association over that time, and most recently for the last 5-6 years as Executive Director. So, been around the industry for a while. I came from outside construction prior to 2012, so it was new to me. I've learned a lot. And as I said earlier, I'm excited to talk about metal any opportunity I have. So the Metal Construction Association is a trade group representing the manufacturers of architectural and metal roofing and wall products. Yeah, and that includes not only manufacturers, but suppliers to the industry, fabricators, some of the accessory manufacturers. So we cover pretty much the entire vertical of the people involved in the metal construction industry. And our purpose is to advance the use of metal panels in the building envelope. So our members manufacture standing seam metal roofing, metal shingles, MCM products, IMP products, and we promote all of those. And our main objective is to educate architects, designers, specifiers, building owners about the advantages of metal and to promote its use in their projects.
Perfect. And so, can you give us an idea? You mentioned education is a big part, right, of what the association does. Can you give us an idea of what kinds of channels and formats you use when you're trying to educate architects, contractors, et cetera, Jeff?
Yeah, and we take a multi-channel approach. Yeah, we have, like everybody else, we're on social media, right, promoting to our various audiences and communities the benefits of metal, educating them about that. We have a Metal and Architecture Academy on Arc Records site that we also direct people to, so the designers, architects can go and get their CEUs by taking one of our courses. We use some of the other platforms as well, so that we have product out there, and we're always pushing metal's message in front of our targeted communities. We're at trade shows. We're doing a hands-on demonstration for contractors or installers. So, trying to take a well-rounded approach to educating all of our communities engaged in the construction industry about how they can advance their projects by using metal and including it as the building cladding material. So.
Yeah, I know as a manufacturer that's a part of the association, we lean on you guys greatly from that education standpoint. And I know that you guys are working on, some video installer training and stuff that is sorely needed in the industry. So I know that we all count on you guys tremendously.
Our research has shown that lack of qualified installers is one of the major hurdles for metal, the use of metal. And so a major initiative for MCA this year is to develop an online interactive best practices guidelines for, how installers, to inform and educate installers about the proper techniques in installing the different metal panels. Be it, we're going to start with metal roofing, and that would be, both standing seam and shingles. We'll move the wall products, and it'll include single skin type products, MCM products. Well, and eventually we'll even have treated on the IMP panels, both wall and roofing products there as well. So pretty full curriculum, and with the intent of establishing MCA as the resource for information about best practice in the installation of metal products.
For sure. And you just said a couple, I think, really interesting things there, Jeff. The first, in case our listeners maybe didn't pick up on it, is that there's a need, still a big need for metal roof and wall panel installers, right? And so if somebody's looking to diversify their market or start installing different products, it's a great time to hop into the metal industry. And then to that end, they can count on you guys for some education and support in order to make sure that they're learning the proper steps and the standard operating procedures to make sure that they don't end up with a lot of callbacks and that kind of stuff. So a really, really big opportunity for sure in our industry. So Jeff, let's go ahead and dive in a little bit here. When you think about metal construction, how would you define that? And then in your mind, what type of building does the construction method serve best?
Yeah, I define the metal panels and the products, be it a wall or a roofing product, as a lifetime product. So that's it. Properly installed, once put on, a building owner, be it a residential property, commercial property, whatever, should have no need to replace that assembly or system over the next 50, 60, 70 years. Our research has shown that metal roofing has got a minimum life span of 60 years. And, we use that number because those are the oldest roofs we could find at the time. And we are confident it's going to last much longer than that. So people can have confidence that when they put a metal product on their roof or walls, that it's going to perform for the entire serviceable life of that building.
Yeah, and I think the service life has made a big difference, right, as far as why more and more people are turning to it. I know personally we were looking at a little project at our home, over the weekend, and one of the other products we were considering was kind of a siding, a wooden siding. And the manufacturer literally said, it's got a 15-year life expectancy and a 5-year warranty. And it was more expensive than metal panels, to your point, which would last 60 to 70 years. And so, we as a consumer had a hard time not choosing metal. Of course, I'm like you. I'm in the industry and I love metal anyway. So I would have had a hard time choosing a non-metal product anyway. But the fact that the life expectancy was so much greater and a less expensive product, it just really made it a kind of a no-brainer. So,
yeah, and I would add to that not only the life expectancy, but also the performance level over that life cycle. Metal roofing, for example, it has increased wind load capacity compared to other cladding materials. So, it's resilient in a number of different ways, be it fire and others. And it's just, that system will perform, to a higher level over the course of its lifespan, on the building. So I think it's a win-win for a building owner in that regard.
Absolutely. And besides, your extreme weather, examples you just shared, you've got wildfires, you've got the fact that it can be engineered to resist much greater uplift values, right? I had a guest on the show here recently. We talked a lot about the energy savings that reflective metals can provide. And, they do that on a home, but, then you expand those to a commercial facility and it's absolutely crazy. What a difference it can make, especially, this guest was sharing about peak energy demand, right? And how all of that makes a difference and you almost pay equally amount for your peak as you do your regular. And so energy efficiency is yet another fabulous benefit of metal roofing and siding.
It is. And as we've kind of articulated here over the last few minutes, metals attributes across the board are just driving increased interest in its use and increased demand. We're seeing growth of the use of metal across all building sectors. I know you asked the question earlier about what type of buildings it is best for. I don't know that I could say there's a building type that it's best. It's applicable for all building types, and we're seeing its use grow across the board. So be it residential roofing, the commercial industrial sector, institutional sector, our research has shown that we've gained share over the last 5 years, and our forecasts suggest that growth will continue as far as taking the greater share of whatever volume is out there at that point in time.
So do you think for much of that, Jack, the benefits are obviously very, very strong for metal roofing, right? But it's kind of taken a while for the groundswell to really get to where it's at there. Why do you think it took people a while to kind of get on the train of metal roofing and siding products?
Well, I think there's been a number of different influences over time. Some of it's perception. I think from years ago, metal's been used in the ag sector forever. It's been a great product there, but it also, in some ways, even in some of the light industrial sectors, some of the old products, people drive by, they see maybe a rusted metal roof or something, and they think that's what metal roofing is. And we know it's a much different product today than it may have been years ago. And there are other hurdles. The initial cost, as compared to some other products, may be a little higher, but when you look at the lifetime value of that product, it's much more economical, and your ROI is much higher by using metal as compared to some of the others. And people are just starting to understand these things. The finishes in the industry have become better in their long-term performance. They've obviously become better as far as what we're able to print on these panels as well. I mean, it's hard on some of them nowadays that, they look like wood, and you can't tell the difference until you walk up and grab it and then feel what it is. So great technology there, and it's just fueling greater use of the product across the board.
It really is. And, you mentioned the print technology. That's a really exciting change that's come. I mean, you can literally take and print a picture of somebody's face and put it on a metal panel now. And, not that anybody would want their face on a panel, but it's really cool that what the industry has done. There's products out now that can actually get a warranty within 1,500 feet of a coastline. That's not something that we could do as an industry before either, right? And so those are really exciting things. Do you think there's any myths still out there, Jeff, when people think about metal roof and wall panels that we need to kind of educate on?
Yeah, there are. I mean, people think they're noisier. If it may be in a residential application, and we know that's not true. People think that they're more susceptible to the damage for hail or whatever, and we know that their impact resistance is higher than a lot of alternative materials. And then just some of there are still some thought processes that there's not much architectural design flexibility with some of their products, and aesthetics aren't what some of the other products are could be. But as we just talked about, some of the print capabilities, the new profiles that are out there, all that stuff is those are old stories. They're not current state, and it's the industry's done a great job in addressing those concerns, and it's an attractive, high performing product.
We have some technology on our website where architects can actually use photorealistic and digital samples to take and design their buildings. And it's incredible how much interest and traction there is from architects these days, actually using metal, not because it's going to last longer necessarily, not because it's better for fires and uplifting, but they're actually starting to gravitate towards using it as an intended design element. And that's just been really fun to watch unfold. And of course, as they do that, wider acceptance grows, and then people don't start thinking of the old metal panel on their, grandfather's shed on a farm, right? That was noisy, right? All those things, you made reference to earlier. So I think we're really on the precipice of some really great things for the industry.
Well, what's interesting is, especially in the residential sector, the growing use of metal on wall panels, and the integration of that, as you suggest, with other materials And, metal's a part of an overall design that they have really unique. But I had somebody mention to me the other day, they said, we're seeing a lot of use of metal in the high-end residential market. And more often than not, it's an architect's home or it's the designer's home.
Yeah.
So the people that are designing these buildings are using the products themselves for their homes and buildings. And I think that just, again, reinforces the message that we've been trying to convey to the homeowners, specifiers, designers, etc.
And I'm glad. I think it's really interesting that you mentioned the trend towards wall panels as well. We are seeing that as well. And of course, then as manufacturers, we're all, posturing to develop even more wall panels, right? And even more finishes and stuff because, you have opportunity on a roof, but of course, on the same building, you have actually more wall area than you have a roof. And so when we think about, environmental opportunities and we think about energy savings, recyclability, cool construction, it goes far beyond the roof these days. And I think you're dead on that. So how about sustainability? We haven't talked about sustainability. Do you feel like metal roofing and siding products check that box as well?
They do. When you look at it from a cradle to cradle type approach, so the manufacturing process, the substrates, the metals themselves, are being made more efficiently, and with less energy consumption. So they're better. We're reducing the environmental impact there. Their long life cycle contributes to the need not to replace product every 15 years or whatever it may be for alternative materials. The fact that they're highly recycled, is also improves the sustainability factors and measures for metal. And then just the overall resiliency. I always struggle with a bit with the sustainable versus resilient, relationship. But that overall performance and the way that they help improve building performance, I think all leads to high sustainability scores.
Yeah, and the other thing we see a lot of anymore in regard to sustainability is people using them as a host for solar applications. I don't know if you've seen a lot with that.
We view metal as the only appropriate substrate for use underneath solar because the panels themselves will outlast the solar panels. So with some alternative building materials, you put a solar array on top of a roof, and the roof needs to be replaced before the solar panel does. So you have to pull all that off, redo it. If you have a metal roof, that's unlikely to happen. That metal roof will outlive the lifespan of the solar array.
Yeah, for sure. And, solar has really taken off, in the Midwest and around the country as well. It's been very popular out west for quite some time in the Southwest, but, we're even seeing a lot more in the Midwest here. So,
yeah, to that point, I'll just note, at one point, solar was considered either a Florida or California type product. I live in just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and there was a subdivision that was built about 3/4 of a mile from my home, that probably 70, 80 homes. Every home in the subdivision has solar on the roof. So it's,
nice.
It is, becoming more popular. People are understanding the benefits of it. We're obviously advocating for put a metal roof underneath that panel.
There you go, right? Yeah, don't put it over shingles or something else, for sure. All right. So you mentioned something earlier I want to dig into a little bit more, Jeff. You and I, it's a term we use, all day, but in case some of our listeners haven't thought about it, I wonder if you could kind of walk us through the kind of an example. And you mentioned life cycle cost, right? Like, so the difference in price maybe on day one versus life cycle. Could you walk us through kind of an example?
Pretty straightforward. Because of its long-term life cycle, if the initial cost may be about 50% higher than a shingle roof today, in most situations. But you're going to make the expenditure once, where over 40, 50, 60 years, as we talked about, where if you're doing a shingle roof, you're likely to, replace that, 2, maybe 3 times over that same time frame. So you spend $30,000 on a metal roof today, where you may spend $20,000 on a shingled roof, but in 15 years you have to replace that, and in all likelihood that the cost of that roof is doubled or close to it. So now you're spending $40,000, and then 15 years after that, you're probably spending another $70,000 to $80,000 in 30 years. So your total investment there is about $140,000 compared to if you had just spent that extra money up front. You would have saved $100,000 over that time frame. So the long-term advantage is fantastic. The benefits of metal makes it much more economical.
It does, and then the other cost factor that you didn't hit on, but in most cases applies, and that's tear off, right? So if you do put another roof on, before you can replace that, you may have to tear that off. So you've got the cost and the disposal of all of that, as well. So all of those are real costs. So we really do a lot of education these days with owners and building owners and homeowners, et cetera, on the difference between first cost and final cost, or life cycle cost, as it's often called. So it does the math. If you're going to stay in the same building or location for, more than 15 to 20 years, or even, if it's a generational situation like a home or whatever that's going to stay in the family, metal just absolutely is the most logical and cost-effective option.
Well, and the other counter argument there is that, well, as you alluded to, is I'm not going to stay in my home for 40 or 50 years. I'm going to,
Right.
And that's fine, because the metal roof increases the value of your home. So there's that element as well. So when you go to sell it and move out, you're able to obtain a premium for that property because you have metal versus maybe an asphalt shingled roof.
That's a great point. And I do, I'm going out on a limb here with just a little bit of a unsubstantiated opinion on my part, but I think you're going to see that get even stronger. Because I've personally heard of several situations here lately where insurers are refusing to insure a home unless they put a new roof on it, right? And if that continues to grow as it has over the last year or two, then you're going to find, I think, buyers even more interested in a metal roof that they know has got a 40 or 50-year life expectancy, to where they don't have to mess with it, and they're not going to have that concern with their insurance company.
No doubt about it. You're actually seeing insurers, many of them, start to provide a premium discount for buildings that have metal roofing. So
it's a good time to be in our industry, Jeff.
Yes, it is.
So, we've talked a little bit about architects and how a lot of times they're kind of leading the charge now, right? Through product selection on their own projects, or, projects they're designing. What do you, from your experience, think, architects that are not aware of with metal roofing and siding that we should help educate them?
Well, interesting you asked that question. We were just came from a planning meeting today where we were talking about how do we advance our messaging and further the understanding and awareness of metals attributes and the performance of the systems. And that's really the crux of it. The two areas of focus. How do we get our message and architects to undertake or attend one of our educational sessions? That's challenge one, but once there, the key messaging is about the overall system performance and the life cycle performance of the systems, and then that economical benefit that we were talking about. So, architects, building owners are also highly interested in aesthetics and design features, and metal has all the flexibility and be it just in shape, form, or color, to be able to provide any aesthetic feature or look that you want to obtain. So I think there are a lot of messages that can be articulated and promoted to the architects, and we've been doing that over time, but there's opportunity for us to strengthen that messaging and just continue to build consumption of our products.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, you mentioned wood grain products earlier. That's something that's just really taken hold, because they give that sense of movement, right, that a lot of architects like. And I know some of the coating companies we work with, Sherwin-Williams, they're coming out with some fabulous new products all the time that help with movement and patterns and really getting away from just that single color look like what we've always had. You could really do a lot of really, really fun things these days. So let's shift gears a little bit, Jeff. Are there any code or regulatory changes that are going to impact metal construction that people should be paying attention to your knowledge?
Well, code cycles are something we monitor at the moment. There are areas of the country that are looking at energy codes. In some cases, to advance the codes, which could help metal. In other cases, there are, I know the state of Missouri is, as an example, was one that was considering potentially rolling back some of the energy codes. So those can be of concern and issue. We've been working with some of the regional zoning requirements, Florida and others, about some of the edge metal testing codes and those type of things. And we have a new test standard that we're trying to get developed that'll even further advance at higher standards for the performance of metal. So it's good stuff there. And then there's some regulatory issues that, I think not just metal, but the entire roofing industry as a whole has been trying to monitor what's going on, be it with requirements in certain jurisdictions for carbon reporting, being sure that the requirements are practical and as far as execution and being able to meet them. But we are constantly trying to pay attention to what's happening there. So.
Yeah, and thankfully you guys are, right? Again, you serve a wonderful mission for all of us in the industry and people that use our products as a second user as well. So I'm going to ask you to get your crystal ball out for a minute. What do you think is the most important skill or knowledge that's going to be critical for the next generation of metal construction professionals?
One, I think there's real need, as we talked earlier, about installer training and best practices and how to install their products. I think the bad installation, be it metal or any other, hurts us all. And mm-hmm. And people go, oh, look at that metal roof didn't perform. And well, no, it wasn't a systems problem. It's that somebody may not have followed the best practices or the manufacturer's guidelines for the details of the installation. So understanding the proper guidelines and techniques for installations are one. And then on the resilience from the design side, I think it's all about resilient assemblies. And the opportunity there for metal is huge. We're not a total solution to some of the issues, but we can be a big piece of solution, and therefore I think there's a huge opportunity for people to advance their understanding of how metal factors in with respect to resilient design.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I mean, certainly as people look for ways to differentiate themselves, right, or their companies from a skill set or a market segment, metal is in a great position. Not only do we have a lot of interest right now, right, and momentum in the industry, we also know that we have a bit of a gap from an installer standpoint. And so it is a really good time for people to consider that jumping in. Are there any innovations or industry shifts coming about, Jeff, that you're kind of interested watching and think that we should fill our listeners in on?
I think we mentioned them in some form here. The ability for the new profiles, some of these, machinery that's out there today can just do amazing things. So it's so that the print capabilities, but then also, of course, like everybody else, factoring in how AI has an impact in manufacturing and design process, and looking for opportunities there for improved efficiencies and performance items. So those innovations from a product perspective, Yeah, I hear talk of some new finishes that may be approaching the market in the not too distant future that will, further the performance there as well. And that's exciting, to us, because the more we can do, the add to that lifespan, just the better the message we have, moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that and echo your sentiments. I mean, and as far as AI goes, it's an interesting time for sure, right? I know, at McElroy, we're finding new ways to use it every day. And some of the ways we're using it actually are going to help with trading, Jeff, to your point of, right, helping that next generation learn the skill sets and, what's important when you're doing a vintage detail, right? And can walk them through those situations that end up with a better first product for the customer, but also less callbacks and more profit margin for the installer, which I think are everybody, to your point, it's a win-win. So, well, Jeff, we're kind of getting to the point we should wrap up. Before we do, is there anything else about the Metal Construction Association or, industry trends in general that you want to make sure our listeners know about today?
The call and the interest in metal is growing. We see evidence of that when we go to these trade shows, and just the number of people who, the volume of metal at some of these shows, number one, is increasing over time. And then the interest from on the contractor side for education on not only installation practices, but also, just furthering their understanding about metal and metal roofing and wall products in general. And MCA is a great resource for that. We have nearly 100 white papers and technical documents on our website. They're available to everybody. So we would encourage people interested in learning more about metal to visit metalconstruction.org and take a look at the resources there. And if you don't find what you need, please give us a call, and we're happy to find a way to provide a solution to whatever problem or question you may have.
And you guys are a great asset for us all, for sure. Can you provide whatever best path for somebody to reach out, Jeff, whether it's for you directly or to the office, what number you'd like them to use, or email?
Well, probably via email would be info@metalconstruction.org. We monitor that daily. Otherwise, my direct line is 847-375-6402. So again, if you can't find what you're looking for on our website, or have an immediate question, I'm more than happy to take your call and provide whatever response whatever help I can help or provide.
Very good. All right, Jeff. Well, as always, we appreciate you. I appreciate you personally and professionally, and everything you do for the industry. And thanks for joining the show today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks again for what you do, and have a good day as well.
Thanks for listening to the Building with Metal podcast, presented by McElroy Metal. To stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit us online at www.mcelroymetal.com for more info and products. Until next time, keep building with metal.